This is repulsive. This is Glenn Greenwald talking about the Intercept. This is so, and I'll show you what they're doing for afterwards. But let's listen to it. This is repulsive. The Intercept was founded during the Snowden story to defend privacy rights and oppose the security state. Now the liberal DNC hacks who edit the Intercept are boasting that they've got personal data from Gab, which is a right-wing social media platform, that they're bragging that they have data from Gab users and are sorting through it, doing the FBI's work to find extremists. Now, let me get my jokes on this. But it's already a joke. It's all... so let me just go through what they're actually doing. This is what they're actually doing. So you see this. What he links is this is a fundraising email from the Intercept. Okay, ready? This is what it says in that fundraising email. Donald Trump is gone from the White House, but make no mistakes, white supremacists, QAnon believers, and Donald Trump election fraud conspiracists still pose a grave threat to our democracy. So we've been grifting off of Donald Trump hate for 5 straight years, pushing an evidence-free conspiracy theory and red baiting and McCarthy smearing anybody who disagrees with us. So now that's gone. Nobody's reading our shit. So we're here to let you know you still have to stay scared. You still have to stay scared, and not of the powerful, but of the powerless. Here we go. We've gotten a hold of a massive data dump of the users of Gab, not the executives, not politicians, regular people who are using a social platform. They've gotten a document dump of the far-right social network that's become a safe haven for all the people Facebook and their ilk kicked off their platforms. So it's not enough that they've been canceled from society off faith. They're kicked out of the public square, and then they went and they found their own hall, and now they're having their own meetings in their own hall. And now the Intercept is going to go try to shit on them more. They were wearing a scarlet letter. They've been kicked off Facebook. Intercept, that's not good enough for them. They want to go get them more. Why? Because they don't really do adversarial journalism anymore. As we just showed you with the bullshit Jeremy Scahill article about Joe Biden's foreign policy. 100% propaganda what Jeremy Scahill's doing and the Intercept. We just showed you that. And James Harkin, we just showed you their Syria coverage, how it's direct, it's CIA talking points repeated. James Harkin and I forget the other guy's name. Since its creation in 2016, Gab has harbored a who's who of dangerous extremists, from Alex Jones to the gunman who murdered 11 people at the Pittsburgh synagogue. You know who else has harbored them? AT&T. They use telephones to talk. They use AT&T telephones to talk. AT&T should shut them down. That's the equivalent of what they're doing here. Since its creation, Gab has harbored a who's who of dangerous extremists, from Alex Jones to the gunman who murdered 11 people at a Pittsburgh synagogue to QAnon devotee Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene. Earlier this year, a hacker obtained 65 gigabytes of data from the site and shared it with media organizations like The Intercept to investigate.
Oh, my God.
Right now, The Intercept is digging through this massive data dump to uncover everything we can about these violent white supremacists. Will you chip in and help our team continue its reporting on the extreme right wing? If you save your payment information through Act Blue.
Oh, wow.
Your donation will go through immediately. Act Blue. Hey, we have some random data on the powerless. Could you give us money? My favorite money asks are the ones where you don't even know exactly what you're giving to. We have billionaire investors. We need help going through data, and we're not going to go into detail about it right now. Hey, you're funded by a billionaire. How have you not updated your marketing bullshit? Act Blue It'd be funny if the link that they gave you for this went right to Glenn Greenwald's Substack. That would be funny if that's where that link went to. This is amazing. Facebook kicked them off already. Facebook, you know the good guys. You know the good guys over at Facebook working with the Atlantic Council and Henry Kissinger to kick people off the good people over at Facebook. The Intercept is the censors over at Facebook. The Intercept thinks are credible. That's them propping up censorship of Facebook by the Atlantic Council. That's the Intercept also doing that. They're going to weed out extremists. You know, people who promote extremism, as opposed to what the U.S. government does on a daily fucking basis.
Exactly.
But a little known fact, Act Blue is an anagram for masochists click here. I don't know if you know that. So hard to imagine a worse perversion of the Intercept's mission than using hacked documents to shine light on the communications of ordinary people. And here's what Glenn Greenwald says. The people who run the Intercept now had nothing to do with its founding. They just leech off those who did and are authoritarian shit liberals, so this is what they do. The only saving grace is that outside like 3 writers, I would say maybe 1. I know who he's talking about. He's wrong. Nobody reads that rag. He's right about that. Nobody reads that rag except for outside 3 writers. I get that. Here's what Matt Taibbi said about it. He said the Intercept ditching its oppositional posture to do an FBI-like job snooping on ordinary people in Gab files feels familiar. Like WikiLeaks being discarded as a partner by mainstream news outlets in favor of Bellingcat, an approved leak site, which is, again, funded by the U.S. government to give propaganda on war. And here's what Glenn says. He says, bold adversarial journalism? You mean serving as mouthpieces for the CIA and acting as monitoring cops for the FBI? Liberal political hacks ruin everything. The Intercept is shit. That's not a pothead comedian saying that. That's the most decorated journalist of our generation saying that. The guy who founded it. There's nobody alive with more. There's no journalist alive who's broken bigger stories or has more awards than Glenn Greenwald or has had a bigger impact on Western society than Glenn Greenwald. And there you go. He's saying the Intercept is shit. But I'm sure Ryan Grimm is doing great work over at The Hill right now. He says, this seems odd. Join the Intercept. Donate. And what's standing with Glenn Greenwald? It says what's odd? Well, it's odd that it says stand with Glenn Greenwald. And then they ask you to. It says here's where it says in an obvious attempt to retaliate against the Intercept's critical reporting on abuses committed by Brazilian judicial officials, prosecutors have filed a criminal complaint against our co-founder Glenn Greenwald. There is no democracy without a free press. We ask advocates for press freedom everywhere to join in condemning the Bolsonaro government's transparent effort to intimidate and criminalize journalists. We stand with Glenn Greenwald and the Intercept's team in Brazil and demand that the prosecutors respect press freedom and drop this blatant politically motivated charge. Here, now give us money. So that's Glenn saying, this seems odd. And here's Ryan Grimm. Here's our friend, the D.C. bureau chief of the Intercept, who we've outed as being an establishment propagandist of the highest order because he's shitty at it that even I can call it out. Here is Ryan Grimm saying Glenn Greenwald is a good friend and that'll never change. Boy, if you think Glenn Greenwald is your good friend, I feel sorry for you. If you think that he still respects you and that and he might say so to your face. But I really feel sorry for you. Glenn Greenwald is a good friend, and that'll never change. But the Intercept remains committed to doing powerful adversarial journalism. Support our work by becoming a member. And so how I know that Glenn cannot possibly respect this fucking obvious tool is because with what Aramate said. He said, are you kidding me? You're trying to fundraise over the fact that your outlet is censoring its co-founder.
Barrett, because he sent that tweet on the day that Glenn resigned.
Yes.
Because Glenn
was being
left
censored.
The Intercept because he wanted to write about the Hunter Biden story. And all of a sudden, Betsy Reed, the editor-in-chief, tried to bring in all these hacks like James Risen and Robert Mackey to basically censor his reporting and prevent him from talking about this story, because that back then it was fashionable to believe that this Hunter Biden laptop was possibly all just a Russian plot. And apparently 4 years of embarrassing Russiagate duds didn't teach the Intercept anything. And they fell for it to the point of trying to censor their co-founder, the guy without whom they wouldn't have jobs. And so Glenn left. And here's Ryan Grimm immediately, instead of, at minimum staying, like, if you can't speak up for Glenn and speak up for journalistic integrity and against censorship, at least say nothing. At least say nothing. That's the least you can do. So at least say nothing. He doesn't do that. He calls Glenn a friend, but then tries to fundraise over the fact that he's left. And what he's trying to do there is appeal to MSNBC liberals who are now elated that the Intercept has basically lost one of its few remaining adversarial journalists. That's what he's trying to do.
That is disgusting.
It's really disgusting.
That is like, I mean, I don't care what you think about Alex Jones, but that's disgusting. Whoever you can think of who's a bad person on the right, whatever bad person on the right you think, that there's nothing more disgusting than what Ryan Grimm just did. My good friend, hey, by the way, send us money after we just shit on him publicly. I'm not going to stand up for him, and I'm not going to tell you the truth about the situation, but I am going to ask you to give us money using his name. Could there be any bigger of a douchebag move in the fucking world? I have yet to see it.
They totally sold him out. And, listen, it gets even more cynical because, look, are they fundraising actually to fund their journalism?
No.
No, they're not.
No.
It's a scam. It's a marketing scam. Basically, they're right now a 501c3 funded by Pierre Omidyar, this regime change billionaire who provides all their money. And by the way, pays ridiculous salaries that are pretty much unrivaled in media, let alone leftist media, where people are paid like hundreds of thousands of dollars to do nothing. In the case of James Risen, he was paid over $300,000, probably more, to write Russiagate fan fiction a couple of times a month, if even that. And so, look, if you really need money, if you're really hard up and you need help keeping the lights on, which is what Naomi Klein, of all people, said in one of these emails. She writes for them too. Naomi Klein, who wrote the book No Logo, which is all about corporations using deceptive branding. So Naomi wrote in an email, we need your money to help keep the lights on. But it has nothing to do with that. The reason why they need your money is because to remain a 501c3, a nonprofit, they have to show a certain number of members. And so that's why they need donations, because if you don't have enough members, then you turn from being a 501c3 into Pierre Omidyar's private charitable foundation. And that will subject you to more IRS scrutiny. So this whole marketing thing where they talk about we need your money to do our journalism on these extremists or to keep the lights on and to save journalism, it's a marketing scam to protect a billionaire's money. That's what it is. And all these people are people who've spent their careers exposing the deceptions of big corporations and injustice. And here they are taking part in this blatant money grab because it's profitable for them. But it's just it gets increasingly embarrassing. And
they're not embarrassed. They're not embarrassed.
Shitty journalism too.
They're not embarrassed. Just so you know.
Well, I'm embarrassed for them. Okay, I'm embarrassed for them. I realize they're not embarrassed. I'm embarrassed for them.
So I mean, I'm just being cute. But here's another example. Here's you pointing out. Here's Ryan Grimm doing a bullshit ask for funding. And you said, Ryan, you do invaluable work. That's your Canadian coming out. He doesn't do invaluable work. Ryan, you do invaluable work for the establishment. Like when you kneecap forced the vote in such an obvious way, you ruined your reputation with people who were watching. Ryan, you do invaluable work. You also put your name on a scam fundraising campaign for your billionaire-owned outlet. I don't fault you for that. You're just doing your job. But please don't belittle people who are putting their name on something genuine and noble. And you're talking about forced the vote.
Yeah, that was when he was belittling forced the vote. And I was saying, look, if you're going to put your name on a scam fundraising where you pretend as if you need people's money to do journalism, which is just, again, it's a ploy so that they don't become, so that like they want to avoid a certain tax status with the IRS for their regime change billionaire owner. If they're going to do that, like, okay, but then don't belittle people who are actually doing something noble, which is force the vote. That's what he was doing.
That's exactly what Ryan Grimm at The Intercept does. That's his job now. He's not doing journalism. He's doing straight up propaganda. And sometimes those crisscross, sometimes those intersect, where he gets to do propaganda and a little journalism at the same time. But he's never doing anything except straight up propaganda now. And just go back and look. Here's what Shant Mesrobian says. He says, I don't think people realize the extent to which journalists under 40 years old casually consider themselves Democratic Party operatives with no qualms, self-awareness, or any sense of impropriety. Well, that would be what appeared to be Jeremy Scahill's recent work. Certainly his interview with AOC about Force the Vote was unbelievable garbage, where he was doing interference for the Democrats. And then this latest piece he did on an Intercept about Joe Biden's foreign policy is a fucking joke. And we all know he knows better. So it's just like, give me $500,000 and I'll print some propaganda for you. And who gives a fuck if Jimmy Dore calls me out? I can just say he's a YouTuber. But here's what Glenn Greenwald says. I think the public realizes it. Realizes this, meaning that these journalists consider themselves to be just an extension of the Democratic Party, and they don't have any qualms with it, like Ryan Grimm, Jim Risen, Betsy Reed, everybody at The Intercept, basically. Ken Klippenstein, who says the Russiagate was too boring. He's too boring to report on the biggest media story. The last 5 years, it was too boring. Like, they're such bad bullshitters. They're worse bullshitters than politicians. Ryan Grimm, Ken Klippenstein, Jeremy Scale, all these guys. They're such shitty bullshitters. Glenn Greenwald says, I think the public realizes it, which is why those outlets are failing. And they are. The Young Turks, the Intercept, they're failing. I think the only ones who don't realize it are these journalists, because in their world, that's what a journalist does. And he's speaking about everybody at The Intercept. And Ryan Grimm could pretend he's not one of those people, but he is. So is Jeremy Scahill, so is Robert Mackey, so is James Harkin, so is Betsy Reed. That's it. There you go. There's your Intercept. There's no one. There is no one that the establishment can't co-opt. There is no one. This is proof. There's no one. They co-opted the Young Turks. They co-opted other YouTubers with MSNBC contracts. They got The Intercept. I cannot wait till they come to try and co-opt me and Aaron Mate, because that's going to be a big check. And we're probably going to relocate the show to Italy. Because that's where I want to live. I want to live in Sorrento, and I love Sorrento, and I know right where I'm going to fucking live. And I cannot wait for Pierre Omidyar to come give me some money. How about I'll take $500,000 a year? I'll that's it. That's as cheap. I'll take it. I'll take $500,000 a year. I'll take it on top of what I make. Whatever they give Ryan Grimm. Right? Because they why wouldn't they try to co-opt? So now they're just doing the smear thing. So the Intercept and the CNN and the Young Turks, they're doing the smear. MSNBC contract people, they're doing smears of people like us who tell the truth about Syria or Venezuela or the Russiagate or the Intercept. So that's their game. When do you think, Aaron, they're going to stop smearing us and start trying to co-opt us?
I don't anticipate that will happen. I just think what people do in the situation is they'll just pretend that we don't exist. Like, for example, The Intercept pretends that these OPCW whistleblowers don't exist. You can't find a single mention of the whistleblowers and that entire OPCW cover-up on The Intercept's website. That's what you do. You try to memory hole anything that's inconvenient to your establishment propaganda. And that's what I think will be the playbook for, journalists who are going along with establishment propaganda. They just pretend that those who actually do their jobs don't exist.
One time I did something illegal. I won't say what it was. I was young. It involved a lot of money. And for months I had nightmares. For months I couldn't sleep. It was bad. And I was like, never again am I going to, it's not worth it. No way. I want to be able to sleep at night, right? Like that's more important to me than anything. And so I don't know how the people so the guys at the Intercept, they must take a lot of Xanax to sleep, or they don't have a conscience, or there's a way they do a certain meditation that dulls their conscience. I don't know what it is, but they're doing it. Or maybe they're just not sleeping well. I don't know. I see a lot of double chins and bags under the eyes of the people over at the Intercept. I see that. What do you think, Aaron?
I haven't done that kind of
investigation,
physical examation. No, I haven't done that kind of investigative reporting yet on
You should. Everybody's waiting for it. People are waiting for it. What do you think about a lot of people are saying Ryan Grimson hung over on the Hill last week. I don't know about it. Anyway, go ahead.
How I think it works, I've said this before on your show. When you have kids, I think you can justify a lot because you're providing for your children, and that's a good thing. And so I think it's a lot easier to compromise your integrity that way when you have people to support. And I said before, I don't try to pass personal judgment on people. I try to criticize stories, coverage itself and institutions. Yeah. I don't try to pass personal judgment because I don't know. I'm not in someone's shoes. I don't know their life. I don't know. But I do try to criticize people's reporting. And when it comes to the Intercept and also Democracy Now!, there's just been so much to criticize, unfortunately, especially since Russiagate.
I can put myself in their shoes because I've had to cover the same stories and with the same amount of information. And now I decide, am I going to tell the truth or not? Because if I tell the truth, I'm going to get fucking kicked in the teeth. CNN's going to write a smear piece on me. Dave Weigel at the Washington Post is going to smear me. They're all going to smear me, and I know, and I do it anyway. I tell the truth anyway, as opposed to someone like Ryan Grimm or Robert Mackey or Betsy Ross or Betsy Reed over at the Intercept, or James Risen. So they're given the same information, and instead of telling the truth, they opt on purpose to lie to you. They don't get duped. They didn't buy into something. They know what I know. But they choose to lie. And you're giving them way too much fucking leeway when you say they got duped or they bought in. They didn't get duped. They didn't buy in. They're doing it on purpose. And how do I know? Because they've had it explained to them a million times. And if I can fucking see through it head high, I know they can see through it. They're choosing not to. Those are, as Anna Kasparian would say, those are bad people. Those are bad. They're not a good person. And, who's a better judge?
Look, Jimmy, I've known some of these people for a long time, and I don't quite see them that way. But what's important to me is what they do, not even the reasons behind it. And the point is, if what they're putting out is propaganda, we got to call it out. And that's why I really appreciate what you do, because you do call it out every single time, and you're consistent with it. And that's why I think you found an audience, and it's great. People's personalities, why they do things, I don't know. People are complicated. But regardless, the facts are not complicated. And if people are butchering the facts in the service of a nefarious agenda, as is the case with The Intercept, lending progressive credibility to things like the dirty war in Syria, I mean, that's what I care about. And that's what I'm happy to call out. And I think it's important that we do that.
Yeah. And I'm happy to do the other work that you don't want to do. Hey, everybody, this is the part where I tell you where all our live shows are, but there aren't any. And then this is why I tell you to join our premium program and get extra content, but nobody's got a fucking job. So just enjoy the video.